everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Sooner Girl Sports Pod. And this week is episode 12. I cannot believe I've made it this far, and I've had so many amazing guests. And I truly hope that you guys are still enjoying this show as much as I am enjoying making it for you. And this week's episode 12 is with my friend Amanda Younts. We're doing a special March Madness episode. It just seemed like the perfect time for us. And also, Amanda just got back from a trip to Vegas with a March Madness group, which we will discuss in the show. But I want to give Amanda her right accolades and space and introduction before the show, because she is so much more than just someone that I talk sports with. She is highly qualified, way more qualified than just being someone to talk sports with. That is for sure. So Amanda has her master's in education, and she is a dynamic leadership and personal growth force. She is known as the midlife catalyst. She empowers leaders and organizations to embrace meaningful change with clarity and confidence. She has over 2 decades of experience in public school leadership and education. Amanda is a dear friend of mine that is from my hometown, and what is funny enough about her is I knew her name, I knew her family, but we didn't personally know each other until just a few months ago. We both started our podcasts around the same time, and with some mutual friends, we were connected with each other. I have since been on her podcast on 2 different occasions. One time was me talking about my midlife adventure of starting this podcast and the reasoning behind it. And the second and most recent episode were us talking about the loss of our parents and how that affected us, and also me talking about my dad being an OU fan and how he made me the person that I am today. If you are interested in listening to those episodes that Amanda had me on her show, you can find those linked on my link tree, which is on all of my social media. I want to thank Amanda for coming on the show with me today. You can find her online. She's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Blue Sky, Threads, and Substack. I will put her link tree in the show notes so that you can easily find her. Her podcast is called Midlife Catalyst. It is available on Apple, Spotify, and Substack. So thank you, Amanda, for joining me on the show today. The March Madness Facebook group that is referenced in the show will also be linked in the show notes, as well as her conversation on her podcast with Jim Trudeau and how he built a community and is leaving a legacy around March Madness. She had him on the show, and I will link that in the show notes as well for those March Madness enthusiasts who would like more information on that. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Amanda Younts. I am excited to talk to you about basketball today. There's lots to talk about.
Yes.
So in your trip to Vegas, and that looked amazing, so I can't wait to hear all about that too. So where do you want to start?
Well, I'm actually still in Vegas. Yeah, it's an intense 4 days. Well, really even 5 now with the Madness Eve party on Wednesday, which is huge and massive. Mm-hmm. They keep outgrowing the space.
Yeah.
Because it is so fun to have everyone come together.
All right, so tell me all about, you said the March Madness Eve, like the party, like the whole thing, like let's hear all about it.
It's a whole thing.
It is.
So we were actually reminiscing. There are 2 group leaders, which you've probably seen now. My friend Jim, that was on who really runs the parties and all of that side. And then Barry, who runs and manages the actual Facebook group.
Okay.
Which really is about connecting people to different parties and events throughout Vegas for the week. But we were talking about, this was year 10 for me and how much it's grown. Obviously, I said the Facebook group started as 600 people and now it's over 1,800 people.
Wow.
But that the Wednesday Eve started in a tiny conference room at the Plaza, which is downtown, and not very nice, and is now taken over in a matter of 8 years, I think, 7 or 8 years, the entire stratosphere. So it's taken over their sports book and then 2 different restaurants there.
Oh,
and there was incredible. Still standing room only this year.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. So, and honestly, probably Wednesday night, some of those games were better than any of the games during the tournament. I think
They were.
an overall sentiment is just the lack of really good games and the lack of parity, and how NIL has probably caused some of what we used to love about March Madness,
Yep.
which were the mid-majors, those Cinderellas.
Yes.
I don't know that we're ever going to see those again with this day and age of NIL.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bets is first to 15. And so, historically people come to Vegas because it was the only place you could bet on games, right? Well, post-pandemic, probably around 2021, 22 was when the merge of online betting apps took off. And a lot of states legalized it to where people don't even have to leave their house to wager on games anymore. And I actually read last week that sports betting apps have replaced dating apps. And so this is probably me giving away the brilliant idea, but I'm like, we need to merge the two where sports betting app offers, some dating on the side, and that's, where you're going to find your person, because
that's not a bad idea.
So.
I would definitely be on that if I were single.
Yeah. So I think I'm on to something there.
Yeah, for sure.
But because of that, we saw kind of a decline in numbers of people coming, even though you wouldn't guess it from like Wednesday night and the group. But really, Vegas itself overall is way down right now. And I think it's not, it used to, the last couple of years, people are like, oh, well, we don't have to go because it's legal in, I think over 30 states now.
Yeah.
So we're not going to spend the time to go. Well, now it's more of Vegas has so outpriced itself that a lot of people aren't going because flights are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, people aren't getting the type of comps that they used to get. I would say the slots are probably a lot tighter than they have been in years past. Just all those kind of things. So it kind of leaves you going, is this just how it's going to be moving forward? We're not going to get great games anymore in those first and second round. We're not going to get kind of the attendance where it used to just be, I used to reserve my parties in August. And I don't even think you really have to do that anymore. You can walk up to places probably other than on Thursday. So it's just kind of a different feel, and it's hard to put a finger on. I feel like every time I talk to you, I'm like, well, the good old days of OU football, the good old days of OU basketball. And now I'm like, the good old days of March Madness. And it's like, is this greed has taken the fun out of it? Because it just didn't feel like people were having fun to the level that they have been in the past.
Oh, man.
So I don't know if it's like a feel in society and just kind of the general climate of people right now.
Right.
If it's the economy, if it's just not great basketball.
It's probably a combination of all of those things.
Trying to figure out what it is that it's like, I don't know. But obviously something's going to have to change. Probably starting with the NCAA changing the transfer portal opening, because that's ridiculous. I mean, we saw it in football, but I think it's even more ridiculous in basketball.
I will never understand. It should not open in the middle of postseason, period. I don't care what sport. Like, I just can't even fathom why anybody, especially whoever made that decision, thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
It's just beyond
it's
insane.
forming their own sport.
Yeah.
So
I suppose it would be one thing if, I don't really know if this would work either, but if they're like, okay, if your team is still in play, then you cannot entertain people in the portal and your people cannot go in the portal. But I think the whole thing should just wait till after postseason. I don't understand.
Yeah. I don't know what difference 2 weeks.
It shouldn't matter. But like you said, unfortunately, it's every sport, and we griped about the same thing during football season, and it's just absurd to me how anybody thought that this was a good idea. So, But no one asked us. I don't know why. I mean, but I mean, in all honesty, though, like it affects so much. Like you said, it's like a domino effect. And sadly, I wonder if you're right in saying that we won't see those Cinderella teams anymore because everybody's chasing the money bag, and those small schools aren't going to get the caliber of players that it takes. You know, last year there was the guy, Jack, like Goki or something, and he was from Oakland.
Yes.
And everybody was making memes about him and everything, just like, hey, this guy's, he's going to go be an insurance salesman in 2 weeks, but he's plowing through the Sweet 16 or whatever. And that's what it's all about. I mean, that's the joy of March Madness and making brackets and all of that. And that hasn't really been a factor this time at all. And especially on the women's side, I mean, the women's bracket has been pretty predictable, which is somewhat understandable, I guess, on that end. But yeah, it's just, but now how many people have picked USC to go to the championship or Final Four, whatever, and that's up in the air now with injuries, which I know is not controllable, but man, I'm just sick about Juju. I hate that so much. And obviously not a USC fan in any capacity. Still, never have been. But you don't wish.
They're a really good team. And
you don't wish that on anybody. No. So I really hate that for her. I am wondering how it will impact the bracket going forward, because if the OU women make it through UConn on Saturday, they'll get, I think, USC or K-State in the next round. And so I think they could beat a Juju Watkins-less USC team or a K-State team, and then, hey, we're in the Final Four. So
beating UConn would be the big feat there. That's probably the knack on this team, is they win the games they're supposed to, which is great. That gets you far, and I'm glad to see they're back in the Sweet 16, but they haven't had that monumental win under this regime. So this will be huge.
It will be.
For the program, getting number 1 recruit and signing. I know. Momentum's headed the right way, but they've got to get a signature win.
For sure. They had a big couple of days, big 24 hours, Monday, Tuesday, that win over Iowa, which was a good win for them with everything at play. Home court advantage obviously was a huge factor, and people showed up for that. I sadly did not get to go. But,
it looked like a good crowd.
I think there was somewhere a little over 9,000 people there is what I had seen. So that's really good, and that was a good win for Jenny. Personally, obviously, and then for the programs. But it's going to be a real test on Saturday in Spokane. We'll, like you said, we'll see if they can get that good win. I hope, my hope realistically on Saturday is that they just compete.
Right.
That they show up and play the way that they did last weekend in the first and second rounds. That would be phenomenal. But I don't know if they can contain Paige Beckers. I love Paige Beckers. I love watching her. She's incredible, and she scores a lot of points. And it's going to take a lot to contain her, and I don't know if we can do that. So it'll be fun.
It will.
So I'm glad our women are still in the tournament, though, because it's been a rough year for our men, and we Sooners needed something to hang our hat on a little bit. So it's been good for morale, and then getting Elia Chavez, that was huge. Huge win, or a huge get for Coach Jenny. So anyway, I love women's basketball, so I'm glad.
Me too.
It's headed in the right direction, like you said.
It is. I would say on the women's side, probably minus USC at this point. I feel like the Sweet 16 games are going to be much better.
Oh, I do too.
The Elite Eight than the men's games even. I mean,
I
most
agree.
of the games are pretty widespread that usually you wouldn't see in a Sweet 16. I mean, Duke is a 10-point favorite. That's kind of boring. And I would say Vegas has been pretty spot on with their odds.
They have. So far, what I've seen anyway.
Been pretty lackluster. I don't see.
I just remember Duke. Okay, Texas Tech. They've been playing pretty good too. So they play Arkansas. I think they could beat Arkansas for sure. I don't know what the spread is on that one.
Yeah, that's Tech's favored.
Tech, 5.5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting this weekend to see how the SEC fares.
It definitely will.
They have not been as dominant, I think, as anticipated. Still,
Agreed.
obviously, getting 7 teams in the Sweet 16 is pretty impressive, but
It very
I
much
feel like
is.
the Big Ten is kind of overshadowing them a bit, which would be really egg on their face losing both college football and basketball, which kind of
Yes,
a little humorous.
it would. It is
Anyway, but
slightly humorous, absolutely. Um, it's been an interesting season for OU for one. I mean, we started out 13, 14 and 0 and then hello, conference play. And I mean, the SEC's been a good conference all season, and Alabama, Florida. I knew like in the SEC tournament, I'm like, oh my gosh, if we win this game, we're getting Florida in the next round. And which we didn't make it out of that, but I mean, they've been a good conference all season. But yeah, I think it is impressive that so many teams have gotten in this far in the Sweet 16, but it'll be interesting, like you said, this weekend. I'm curious who's going to come out on the other side, because I do think that Texas Tech can beat Arkansas. So down goes one. I think that Florida will win, but I mean, I could be wrong, but I do think that they will win. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. This is a busy time of year. I mean, it's softball, baseball, gymnastics are getting ready for postseason. So, I'm following all the things. So as far as the men goes, like I picked some underdogs on my bracket, and it's obviously been shot straight to hell because we haven't, like we discussed, haven't seen that this year, and I hate that. Eric always makes several brackets. He always picks like the favorites in one bracket, and then he'll pick some underdogs in another bracket, and then he'll do a separate bracket where he picks like who he wants to win, if like OU or if OSU were in the. So yeah, I just did the one bracket. I did one for one men's and one women's bracket, and yeah, my men's bracket is not good. My women's bracket still looks pretty decent, but it's just going to be an interesting weekend. We always try to make a round of the tournament every year, and there weren't any rounds close to us other than the Final Four. We were like, we don't really want to go back to San Antonio. But next year, we get first and second rounds in Oklahoma City. And then the following year, Fort Worth has first and second rounds, and then the year after that, Tulsa has first and second rounds. So I imagine we'll be doing that the next several years. And we went to that last year in Dallas at American Airlines. It's fun. I mean, I love to go. It's just you get good games and it's good teams, but I like going to the first and second rounds. Like, we've gone to Tulsa before for those, and like you said, it's normally we're getting those Cinderella teams, and it's so fun to be there when those underdogs come out and knock off, a top-seeded team. And I would be really sad if we don't see that much anymore. But yeah, we've always enjoyed going to the first and second rounds. You get a lot of games in those couple of days. You get a lot bang for your buck, and the excitement is always there. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I've been and I've seen probably some amazing Cinderellas going back to, I think it was the old Myriad when Valparaiso and Bryce Drew.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Hit that miracle shot, which tells you how old I was. But a lot of times people don't remember Kansas was in that same region and got knocked out the next round. They were opposite of Valpo, who went on to the Sweet 16, but Kansas lost to Rhode Island, which was the thing people would know as Lamar Odom played on Rhode Island because of the Kardashians. So,
yeah.
So yes, so there were some great upsets in that, which when you can see them, it's a lot of fun.
Yes.
But after that, I mean, the year we went to the Final Four was in Oklahoma City.
Was that 2016?
Yes.
Or that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
With Buddy Hield. Yeah.
So I flew back early from Vegas to go to the second round because the first round we were, we won big.
Yeah.
The thing about going is you miss all of the other games happening everywhere else.
I know.
So it's which one do you prefer? If you get lucky and have a great region where it's good teams or close games or upsets, and you're like, I'm glad I was there. But if it's happening somewhere else, you're like,
I know.
So which is why I love coming to Vegas, because where else are you going to have someone that puts all 4 big screens on all 4 games and make sure the sound matches?
Yes.
that you're not sitting with lulls and commercials and all
Yeah.
of those things, which I really don't know that there's a better way to watch the first two rounds.
I
But
agree. We
when
were on a cruise last year during the first two rounds, and we camped out on ship days in the sports bar. And there were quite a few people, obviously, hanging out in there watching the games. But that was pretty spectacular because they had all the TVs everywhere. Everybody had their phones out, with their brackets and tracking it and everything. So I agree with you. I think, that type of atmosphere is the best way to watch those first couple rounds because there's so many games and you don't want to miss anything because there's a lot going on at one time. That's, to me, the downside. Even during football season, I do the same thing. Like I remember last year for OU Texas, the slate of games on that particular day, I don't remember now off the top of my head what they were, but the slate of games that day was just phenomenal. And I was just like, crap, I want to watch all of those, but I also want to go to the OU Texas game. So it really is a catch-22. I try to balance in attending sometimes and staying home other days because it really is a choice to make. But yeah, we actually had multiple TVs going last weekend. We had 2 TVs going, and then I actually had my iPad on probably for softball. That's a regular occurrence around here, especially with Eric being an OSU fan. We need the OSU game on. Well, I'm not giving up the TV, and it's not fair to take it from him, so just bring in another TV. I was talking to Caitlin Fournier. She is fan relations at OU, and a few weeks ago, and she was telling me that she currently has 2 TVs in her living room. Like, that's just the norm. And she grew up having 2 or 3 TVs in the living room because one of her parents went to Kentucky and the other one somewhere. Anyway, and then she went to Mississippi State and then got her master's at OU. So they've got a lot of teams represented and they all want to watch all the things. So Correct. She said it was always normal to have more than one TV in the living room and people would think they were crazy. And I'm like, I think that's genius. Sign me up for that.
Right.
I'm not sure that our women make it past UConn, but if they do, I definitely think they could make it to the Final Four. I don't know what lies after that. I can't remember the bracket. Who do you think that's left? I mean, I know we kind of talked about it a little bit. Like, I think Florida will win. Who do you have moving on out of the Sweet 16? Or what do you think?
I think right now Duke is kind of what we knew.
Yeah, Cooper Flag, he's fun to watch.
Head and shoulders a bit above everyone else.
Yeah.
I feel like anyone from the SEC can win, and I feel like in the same breath, none of them can win. So it will be interesting to see because I haven't been that impressed with any team. Like, I think we were all waiting for Auburn to get to postseason and turn it on, and they've actually gone the other direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. And it's hard for me to ever doubt a Michigan State team as long as
for sure. I'm rooting for Houston, obviously. I'm a big fan of Kelvin Sampson, and I would love to see them. If they make it to the Final Four and they play in San Antonio, there's going to be so many people there, which would be fantastic. People travel to the Final Four. When we were there, we were in Houston a couple of years ago, but San Diego State was there, and those people traveled. There were so many San Diego State people in our hotel, and they were just happy to be there and living in the moment and enjoying it, and that's what I like to see. But you get those teams that are close, like if Houston ends up in the Final Four this year at San Antonio, they're going to travel. They're going to be packed. So, and I hope they do. I like Coach Sampson. In fact, I think my bracket, I have them at least going to the Final Four, maybe the championship game. I'm rooting for them for sure. What are you thinking for the women now that, I don't want to say USC is off the table, obviously, but that's a big impact that they have with Juju out. And man, I hate it for her. And it does affect how I feel about the bracket. And so what are you thinking on that side?
I think it leaves South Carolina, to me, still as the favorite.
Yeah, they're so good.
They really are.
Dawn Staley is just something else. She's fun to watch, and she's really built something out there, and they've got a lot of talent on that team. And, LSU, I like watching Kim Mulkey. She's quite the trip. I have mixed feelings about her. I'll just say that. I'm certainly not on board with her totally as far as her coaching style and her anger outburst by any means. But I certainly enjoy her outfit choices. And that they're a good team. They're a very good team.
They are a good team. She, in my opinion, is even the year they won, she is a total distraction from her team. And she says she does it to take the heat off her team. I think it makes it worse because then you get the public hating her team because of her behavior. And it's really ridiculous.
Yeah, she's a mess.
So hence why I prefer Dawn Staley and how she carries herself and approaches the game.
Yeah, she's very classy. She's very,
she really,
she's way different from Kim Mulkey, complete opposite.
Complete opposites.
I get a kick out of Kim Mulkey's facial expressions, like the cameras that pan from, if the other team makes a shot and the camera pans to her face and she's over there, and it's honestly really not funny if we're being realistic about it. Like, she's so childish in her behavior, but yet it's also comical.
I enjoy watching her get beat.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I mean, I certainly would. Of course, I am not an LSU fan in any capacity either, besides her, just in general. So yeah, anytime LSU gets beat, it's a good day. And yeah, especially if it's, if it's her, I definitely think it's funny. But they do have a really good team. And I mean, if we're being honest, when they come to Norman next year, I'm going to try to go because I want to see it. And I think a lot of people are that way. Whether you love her or hate her, it's a spectacle. And she does have a good team. The team is fun to watch. They're very talented. So I do hate that she overshadows them, like you said. I do feel like she takes away instead of carrying the burden, so to speak, like Dawn Staley. She's more of a distraction than a help. But who do we have tomorrow? Oh, yes, Tennessee.
I think, honestly, that's probably the best matchup of
I do too.
All the Sweet 16 games. So I'm eager to watch that.
Yes. Well, two SEC teams facing off. I think it'll be a good game, and Tennessee's a good team. I don't know who I would pick to win that. Of course, Otega Oweh is with Kentucky, and he played for OU last year, and boy, I don't know what it is. Like, he really has got some dislike in his heart for Oklahoma. I mean, you could tell it when we played them, and I don't really know why, but I'm glad he's doing well. I will say that. I enjoyed watching him at OU, but I hate that we lost him, and I wonder what is behind his animosity with that. I mean, and we haven't even mentioned the whole Porter Moser thing. Like, I mean, I'm wondering if anything's going to come of that, or if it's just hearsay, or...
I mean, I would feel like he's definitely looking because he's made it known. I mean, it's very apparent and it's been verbalized, which probably has something to do with anyone that's left OU. It's just the lack of NIL and the lack of commitment to it.
Yep.
And, so they're not going to get any better. They're not going to get the level of recruits. They can't compete in the SEC. I mean, they won some games this year. They cannot compete financially in the situation that they're in. And it's been stated over and over and over again.
Yep.
So I don't know what it's going to take, but I don't think Josie sending out a letter begging the fans to fund this is what's going to
I don't either. And Porter made that comment just last weekend about how these games are won in April and May, June, and he is not wrong. And I listened to another podcast. It's called Soonercast, and the guy I know on there, Jeremy Downey, they had Ryan Spangler on about a month ago, and they know him, and he was basically on saying the same thing. Obviously he used to play basketball at OU. Of course, it was before the lovely NIL. He was an excellent player, so he knows what it takes to win and play at the university. And it's just crazy, again, back to NIL, what it's affected. And what it's done. And Ron Spangler basically said the same thing, like there's just not the support there for basketball, and I don't know what it's going to take to get it. But like you said, sending an email asking us for more money is not going to help, because I get those emails, and I love my school. I love my university. I want to support them. But also, I support them by going to the games. And I'm spending my money to buy tickets and to travel and all of that. And so I can either give you the money and I can just stay home, or I can go enjoy myself. Now, granted, on the flip side of that, maybe I would enjoy myself if we had good players and won. But that's also...
it's cyclical.
It
you
is.
Get the good players because you're not spending the money, so therefore no one goes to the game, so therefore you can't generate revenue.
It's maddening, honestly.
Yeah.
And, so many people keep bringing up the arena situation, and I have mixed feelings about it one way or another, but it matters not what my opinion is, because I'm not paying for it and I can't vote. So my opinion is null and void. My friends that are on KREF, I've talked to them about their opinions, and just other people, and for the most part, everybody seems to think that we need a new facility. And again, I know my opinion doesn't matter, but I'm kind of on the fence about it, because who wants to pay for and go to a bigger or nicer arena? They're not even going now.
Right.
And I don't think that the lack of whatever is affecting the attendance at Lloyd Noble, like the amenities or whatever, like the fan experience or whatever you want to call it. I don't think there's anything as far as that goes that's not what's keeping people from going to the basketball games. Now, granted, I went to 4 or 5 games this season, men's basketball, and I was at the Texas game that was a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock tip. I did not expect there to be a good crowd there because of the time. And I also, I bought those tickets before I knew what time the game was. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't have gone. I probably would have still gone. But that is not conducive to bringing in fans, is having a 9 o'clock tip in the middle of the work week.
Yeah.
But I was shocked at the amount of fans that were there that night. And it was loud. It was rowdy. And again, we had a chance to win that game, and we didn't. But it's because we didn't play for 25 minutes of the game. But that's neither here nor there at this point. But my point is, the people came. But at halftime, they were leaving. Because 1, it was 10 o'clock at night. And 2, we were getting our ass handed to us by nearly 20 points. And I think there's a lot of talent on that team. I do think that some of those players are mismatched in their expectations that were placed on them. But Jeremiah Fears is incredible. He's a generational talent. But yeah, I
think that's the other side of it too, is it's going to be a whole new roster next year. And it has been the last 3-4 years.
It's turnover. We just had 2 or 3 names that carried over from last year. Sam Godwin, Jalen Moore.
Yeah.
And Dayton Forsyth, he'll stick around because he's an Oklahoma kid, and I know his family, and he is a heck of a baller. He has a lot of potential, and I'm excited for him going forward. But again, there's just a lot at play as far as that goes. And yeah, Jeremiah Fears, I don't know what's going to end up happening with him. A lot of people are like, well, is he going to stay or go to the draft? And I'm like, well, even if he doesn't go in the draft, which I honestly probably think that he will, who's to say he stays at Oklahoma?
Yeah, he's definitely not staying at Oklahoma.
I don't think so. I saw his Instagram post after the game last weekend, and his, jersey on the floor, which anyway.
And quite honestly, I don't know how they got him there to start with.
I don't either.
They don't have NIL money.
I don't.
I don't feel like he's ready for the NBA.
No, I don't either.
He was very underwhelming to me.
Yeah.
But
I think he's good when he's on. Now, he went through a very bad dry spell, so to speak, right there kind of in the middle of the season, and everybody had been hyping up oh, he's gonna go in the draft, blah blah, and then right after that it seemed like he really got in a slump, and I was going, he's good, don't get me wrong, I physically watched him play, he's an excellent player, but I'm with you, and again, I know my opinion doesn't matter, I just buy tickets and go to some games. That's my input to the basketball program. But he's not ready to play in the NBA. Are you kidding me? First of all, he's barely 18 years old. He should be in high school still. Yeah. And two, he hasn't been consistent enough.
Right.
To, like, through the whole season. I mean, he had his moments, do not get me wrong. And he was on fire the last several games. Like, I mean, just phenomenal. But again, the consistency was not there. And he goes on an NBA roster with that, he's just going to be over there on the bench. So if I were him, I would stay in college at least one more year to improve your stock, get paid. Somebody's going to pay for that because they can develop it. And think how good he'll be, you know, when he has another year of life, maturity, growth, you know, development, all the things. I mean, he can be a hell of a player down the road. I don't think he's ready yet. But again, I don't know what will happen. I guess we'll find out soon enough. But for him, I hope that he stays in college another year, wherever it may be, to get that extra year of growth and all the things. But on the flip side of that, you know, we look at Otega Owe, who went to Kentucky and came to Norman and drilled us into the court twice, basically. And then I cannot think who is at Houston that used to be at OU. It has escaped me. And Kelvin Sampson, carrying on about him and how he's developed and the player he's become and all that. And I don't mean this bad. Like, I don't think Coach Sampson... Huh?
Yes.
Yes. I don't think that Kelvin Sampson meant this as a dig toward OU or Coach Moser.
I heard it.
I mean, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I don't, you think so? Maybe he did, but he said it in such a way where he was just like, well, here it is. And he was not wrong. And it's hard to see. And if we sit there and watch the same thing happen with Jeremiah Fears, where he's going to get paid bag to go to some opposing team, and then we're going to end up probably in the SEC is where he'll go. And then we're going to end up playing them in Norman or wherever. And they're going to nail our ass to the floor again. Like, nobody wants that. So I don't know what the answer is for him. It'll just be interesting to see what he decides and, you know, kind of who's in his ear or whatever. But, you know, when Porter Moser came to OU, we had just, like, the year or two before seen him play at the Final Four with Loyola. And I was excited about that hire. I thought it was an excellent move at the time, and obviously it's been underwhelming. I mean, we haven't made the tournament in 4 years. We played in the NIT 2 or 3 years ago, and then last year we declined our NIT invitation, and then now we finally made it. Didn't make it out of round one, but we made it in, I guess, which I was glad we made it in, but I was afraid that was going to happen. Yeah. I mean, but anyway, it's definitely been underwhelming having him in Norman, and that is very disappointing for a lot of reasons, because I like him. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good coach, if we're being honest. I think it's not working right now. There's so many factors at play, but it's just not jiving for him at OU, and I don't know what that means going forward, because on the flip side, I also know, which we've talked about this with the football program as well, we know what happens when coaches leave, whether it's a firing or they just leave on their own terms. You know, there's lots of turnover, not only in the coaching staff, which is difficult for those kids that are going to stay, like Dayton Forsyth will stay. But we've already had a couple go in the portal, and right. Which a couple of them, you know, not to be rude, but like not too much of an impact, but Norweather, he went in the portal, Luke, and I hated to see him go because he's a good player. And, you know, I think having him come back next year could be really big for our program, but I can't help but wonder if he's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, we might have a different coach. What if I don't like, you know, if I go out here, I can pick my path. Mm-hmm. And you can't fault him for that. So anyway, all that to say, I would hate to see all of that happen, like the turnover and all the changes, but at the same time, I'm like, well, we got to do something. You know, and at least if he leaves on his own terms, we don't have to pay
Well, I don't think they can pay him. I think that's part of it.
I agree. Well, because again,
you can't afford a buyout, and then you even get that. Who in the heck are you going to get to come here and do the same thing? I mean, they're sitting here going, you don't have NIL money. Your last head coach just said it publicly. You
Which
can't
is embarrassing.
Your arena situation. I mean,
yeah.
It's not a desirable
Sadly, it is not.
position.
And, the administration is sitting there looking at his buyout thinking, oh, well, if we buy him out and get someone else, there goes 15 million in 2 seconds. Not to mention, the football program is hanging in the balance. And if nothing happens there, we're looking at another 15, well, probably more than that, in another 9 months. And nobody has that kind of money. So there's just a lot going on. It's stressful. I mean, and that's our 2 major sports. And that's what is so bad about it is, like, football's the moneymaker, obviously. And, I mean, people are still going to show up to the football games. It sells out. It just does. It's going to. But men's basketball, that's our second biggest sport, and people aren't supporting it. They're not helping with NIL, and they're not coming to the games.
Right.
I mean, women's gymnastics packed out Lloyd Noble at least a couple of times in the last season or 2, and that's more people than has been at a basketball game all season.
Yep. You could definitely tell it on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we should just have gymnastics for Lloyd Noble.
I know, and
because
it's sad. Well, I talked about this with somebody. I've heard Gabe and Teddy talking about it as well on their podcast, Coach Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
And, she is phenomenal. And I just think the world of her as a coach and a person, everything I know about her. And we're like, I really hope she's happy at Oklahoma, because the last thing that we need with everything we just talked about with football and basketball, the last thing we need is the women's basketball coach who is producing people, athletes, and on the court, is her going, oh, over
there's
here,
no one here.
is NIL or whatever. But I don't know what kind of impact, getting the number 1 recruit would have on that. But she seems happy at OU. She said that she is. She hasn't made any comments to lead anyone to think otherwise, and the players love her. So I'm just gonna ride that train.
Yeah, I have been pretty disappointed in OU fans for not supporting women's basketball really the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because, in the Sherry Cole days, they would fill that arena.
They do.
With the Paris twins and Danielle Robinson, they would fill the arena. It was a different crowd.
It was.
But it feels like that crowd shifted to softball, and women's basketball hasn't gotten them back. And hopefully this stretch this year and getting the number 1 recruit will, because, I mean, it just sucks as a player. Here you are, look up, and there's not even 1,000 people in the stands. I mean, that's just not...
I agree.
How you want to play, especially then you go on the road in the SEC, and South Carolina's like hanging out the door, and LSU and Tennessee. I mean, they're pretty passionate.
They very much are.
Especially for women's basketball. And so you hope OU can get that back and get that going. And they have in-state girls. I mean, there are reasons people should be going. Their games are a little more convenient, I would say. Typically easier to get to, cheaper tickets, all the things.
Cheaper, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the Van sisters, we'll still have Zaya next season. Peyton Verhulst to be back. Reagan Beatrice Culleton, she's a good player. She'll be back, and I can't think past that. But, I mean, there are talented players to watch. And I totally understand why people want to watch softball. I love to watch softball. I go watch them too. But I attend 3, 4, 5 softball games. I attend 3, 4, 5 men's and women's basketball games. So I try to spread out my wealth. But I know not everyone does that, nor can they, and that's respectable. But it's hard, like you said. I mean, not even just in the SEC, but I went to Dallas last year when Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever came to Arlington. Now, this year, they have moved that game to the American Airlines Center. All that to say, the people are there. Like, the audience that want to see women's basketball, they're there.
Right.
They literally bought out the American Airlines Center yesterday to see Caitlin Clark at the end of June. So, and I realize it's Caitlin Clark, but the audience is there. I do think it's hard, like I said, people to have to choose between, there's a softball game and there's a women's basketball game and then the men play tomorrow and baseball's over here too. And it's hard to support all the things. And like I said, I am thankful and lucky that I'm able to try to spread my wealth and do all of that. And if I can hit several things in one weekend, sign me up.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes you do have to choose, and that's hard, and I get it. And if you have to choose between softball and women's basketball, most people are going to choose softball. They just are. And I mean, that's understandable to an extent, but I do hate it for those girls. I mean, the few games that I went to this season, I mean, it's nowhere near being packed. And like you said, as someone who did go during the Sherry Cole days and see the Paris twins, you know, and the amount of people that were there during those times, I'm just like, where are they at?
Right.
Where are those people? But I do hope it comes back to that. But like you said, I think this run and the names that are coming back, and then that number one recruit, she was in Norman last Saturday for the March Madness round 1 game. And apparently she had a line. Like, people were lined up to see her, get a picture with her and all that. So if she's drawing that kind of attention, that's
exciting. Yeah,
that's very exciting.
Yeah,
I am definitely here for that. So if that's what it took, is getting someone like that, and maybe, you know, well, I guess we'll find out in another 6 months or so. But and too, you know, when basketball season starts in November, it's football season.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, if I'm in Norman on Saturday, I don't really want to turn around and drive back to Norman on Monday or Tuesday to a basketball game. I have done it depending on the matchup and, you know, other things going on, but it's hard. And back to the arena thing, I don't know how much of an impact an arena is going to have on that. And again, if we have all this money, which I realize, you know, tax dollars will play a factor in that. But if we have the money available to do that, we need to find the money available for NIL.
Right.
And then we can deal with the arena.
Yeah, you know, they keep talking about, well, it would be smaller, and so it would. There has always been a problem at Lloyd Noble with student seating, and I know they've moved it several times, trying to find a way to get them closer to the court.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
And just to even have a stadium that doesn't look empty on TV would be helpful. But you're kind of like, why don't you just fill the lower bowl in Lloyd Noble? I still don't understand why your game's going to be empty anyway. Why 2 hours before tip do you not just let people in so at least it doesn't look terrible?
Absolutely.
Because you are on TV a lot now.
Yes.
And it does matter, you know, those PM SEC games, and you look at every other arena and they're full.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And there's one team in the league that is not.
I know. So his name has escaped me. There is an OU grad that works for the SEC network.
Dari,
yes. You know, he had made those comments. I don't remember what game it was during, but he was just like, y'all, this is embarrassing.
It is.
Basically, is what he was saying in a nice, professional way. But he was just like, get it together. Like, this is my university that I have loyalty to and attachment to, and I don't want them to look like a fool. And I completely relate to that. Because, like you said, looking at your LSU and your South Carolina for women's basketball, and then looking at literally any other SEC school for men's basketball, they're packed and they're waiting out the door, and it's embarrassing because it just gives those people like, oh, you wasn't ready for the SEC. It just gives those people more fuel for their fire. That's frustrating because, for one, they're not wrong.
Right.
And two, yeah, that's my school. That's my team. I want them to look good, not only performance-wise, but I want people to show up.
Yeah.
And I'll give it to people on Monday for that women's game, the Iowa game. They showed up. At 3 o'clock on a Monday, I was very worried. But Trae Young...
only because there are two reasons why. Norman let out school. And Trae Young and
that's what I was
the group bought tickets.
Yes. Trae Young bought a lot of tickets for the Saturday and Monday game and gave them away.
Right.
And then, so the volleyball team, they all went over there. The soccer team, they all went over there. You know,
softball.
Softball players were there. Like, the other teams, which I'm so glad they did. They understood the assignment. They knew the magnitude of this. They said, hey, we are going to go and support these girls because we need to. And they did. And they showed up. And I'm very thankful thankful because it was loud in there and it was pretty full. There were over 9,000 people there that day. I don't remember the exact number. But I mean, that's a hell of a crowd for women's basketball on a Monday at 3 p.m. for sure. But that's kind of my thing with everything that I'm doing is, I've talked to the soccer coach, the women's tennis coach, track, volleyball, like those sports like that, they don't bring in a lot of revenue. I actually just talked to a women's golfer the other day as well. They don't get a lot of attention, and those people work hard.
Oh, yeah.
They are a student athlete. They are in school and they are going to practice and weightlifting and doing all the things, traveling with their teams, putting forth all the work and not getting the recognition that they deserve. And that's why I have reached out to all of those people I just mentioned, is because I want to put them in a spotlight, however small my spotlight may be, and be like, hey, follow them on social media. It's not hard. Or if you're in Norman, you can go to the golf course and watch them for free. I talked to Reagan Cheney the other day. She was like, we love it when people come see us. We love it. So, and soccer, like I did go to a couple soccer games last fall and it was packed. There's only stands on one side of the soccer field, but it was full. So that's great. But, same with the women's basketball, like pay attention to these girls. Like they are working hard and they're putting a great product on the court.
They really are.
And they're in the national spotlight. And what they did Monday and even getting that recruit on Tuesday drew a lot of attention to our school. And we need to capitalize on that. And we need to not make them look like fools. So when November comes and basketball season starts, get your butt in those chairs and go and watch them play. I mean, I understand. I would have season tickets if I could. If I could make it to a lot, even more of the games than I do, I would. It's not feasible, me living out of town. And I know people have kids and all the things. I get it. But just support them when you can, and watch them on TV. That helps too. Or buy tickets and give them to somebody. I mean, I've even done that too. Like I picked out some games, even for men's basketball. I bought 5 or 6 games worth of tickets for men's and women's. And if there was a game I couldn't make it to, I will literally give them to you if you will go. But you have to go. Don't just take them. I want someone to go. And again, I know it's hard and it's a commitment, especially for somebody coming from out of town, to go to something like that. And it costs money. I mean, it's not free. I mean, I get it. But even just pick a game and go. Just raise awareness. Get the attention. And because they deserve it. I really hope our girls they're going to have a hard game on Saturday. I hope that game draws a lot of viewers on TV. I'm sure there'll be a good crowd there, regardless of where they're from or who they're for. I hope they perform well and bring pride to our school because that could definitely impact them. But if they do, in whatever capacity, people need to get out and support them.
Right.
And I should have worn my shirt that says support women's sports.
Yeah, I love that. I love it.
Yes, because there's so many student athletes and they all work hard and they all deserve the recognition that they don't often get. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I hope the Sweet 16 games are closer than anticipated, just so we do have some excitement to get us through, because it was kind of like I said,
it was a lackluster
March Madness so far.
It was.
I think, like I said, the consensus is kind of like, oh, is this just how it's going to be from now on? Which hopefully not. But
I hope not. It could just be an off year. I mean, there's a lot going on, like you said, just the state of things and the economy. And I hope that it's just an off year for a lot of people. And because March Madness is one of the best times in sports. It doesn't even compare to NFL or even the CFP. It just does not compare to anything else. And so, yeah, I hope it gets its glory days back. And yeah, I hope this weekend the games are phenomenal because we need it.
Yes, for sure.
Well, Boomer Sooner always.
Yes, Boomer Sooner.
We will see what happens in the next little bit. I don't know when we might find out something about our coach. Or I was wondering if Fears would go in the portal. Or is he, I don't know.
I'm sure he's probably shopping right now.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah. He's weighing those money bags is what he's doing. So, well, time will tell in the next few weeks. So,
yep.
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
coming and talking all the
yeah,
March Madness with me. I'm excited for another good weekend of hopefully some better games for basketball.
yes.
But
Hopefully.
nevertheless, I will be watching because I love March Madness. So thank you, everyone, for listening to that fun conversation with my friend Amanda Younts. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed getting a lot of things off of our chest regarding March Madness basketball. In case you didn't notice, we kind of jumped back and forth in our discussion between the men's bracket and the women's bracket. I do apologize for that. It is easy to do for people like us who keep up with the teams that are in each side of the tournament and who is playing who and when. And I do apologize if I caused any confusion with anyone there. So I did want to make note of that. So I wanted to end this week's episode with our Sooner headlines of the week. And first off the bat is football. So Mike Gundy, the head coach of the OSU Cowboys, he made a comment this past week about spring practice. And as you know, a lot of schools have canceled their spring football games due to various reasons, namely not wanting to showcase their talent before the spring portal season opens and so forth and so on. So Mike Gundy comes out and says, hey y'all, I've got an idea. How about we have a Bedlam spring scrimmage? Ours is slated for April 12th, which is now called the Crimson Combine, and it's actually not a game, it's a combine. But OSU, as of now, is still hosting their annual spring football game that is following a usual game format on Saturday, April the 19th. And he says, hey, why don't y'all come to Stillwater on the 19th and let's get a showdown? So obviously, I don't think that that's going to happen this year. It's too short of notice. And to be honest, I don't know if it's going to happen at all going forward. It is an interesting comment that he made that. But, you know, a lot of people have a lot of feelings about it. My initial response was, okay, well, of course you want to play us in the spring when it's a scrimmage and it doesn't count for it literally anything other than, God help us all, some bragging rights. But I also couldn't help but think about injuries and the potential for how that could affect each team. However, throughout the week, I've listened to different opinions from Dusty Dvorak on with my friend Chris Plank, Gabe and Teddy on their Oklahoma Breakdown podcast. They've discussed all the pros and cons with it. And honestly, I don't agree with what they are saying either. They think that it could be a good thing for the state of Oklahoma. And as Mike Gundy mentioned, he said, hey, let's have it here. Let's have it there. We can trade off years or however we want to do it. Let's split the gate or whatever. Let's charge an admission. You know, it's higher than the $10 price to the Crimson Combine. Yada yada, we can figure that out and make it work. After listening to some other opinions on it throughout the week, I have to say that maybe the idea's kind of grown on me a little bit. And I still don't know if it's something that will actually ever happen. And honestly, I still don't know if it's really a good idea when it comes right down to it. However, I do think that since Bedlam football is not going to be happening in the regular season anytime in the near future, it probably wouldn't hurt to give Oklahomans something to invest into. It would help the local economy. It would give the state something Bedlam-wise to look forward to, which is always something good for morale and things like that. So I don't know, not as opposed to it as I was when he first put it out there. I will just say that because, well, let's just be honest. Anytime he opens his mouth, my first instinct is to just roll my eyes and disregard anything that he has to say. I hate to admit it, but it's true. However, after thinking over it a little bit and looking at some more sides of it, I started to think, well, you know, maybe that's not such a bad idea. So not saying it will ever happen, not saying I'm 1,000% on board with it, but I do see the benefits of it, and it doesn't have to be a full-on game. You know, Bob Stoops popped on the radio earlier this week to give his 2 cents about it. He said, hey, you know, it doesn't have to be a full-on pads game, you know, where it could cause a lot of injuries. It could just be basically like a combined, glorified practice, so to speak. And, you know, injuries can happen in practice regardless. So that's not really something to factor when you think about it that way. However, Colorado, Coach Sanders, he petitioned to the NCAA to get a combined practice with another team. I don't remember now who it was, but he wanted Colorado to scrimmage practice with this other team this spring, and because that is currently against the rules, and the NCAA declined his petition. And Gabe Eichert was talking last week, hey, NCAA, like, you guys need to change the rules on that. This is insane. Why are we doing this? Like, this this could be a good thing. So again, right now it's not even possible for us to be able to do it. It's against NCAA rules. Don't know if that will ever change. Don't know if this will ever happen anyway. But if you heard his comment and you initially had some thoughts about it, hopefully now you've maybe seen and heard opinions on both sides of it, and it gives you a new perspective. So if you have thoughts on Mike Gundy's comment on the spring practice for Bedlam, shoot me a message or give me a comment on social media. I would love to hear what you guys are thinking about that. As for men's basketball, pretty much the only headline I have on them right now is that Villanova announced this morning they have a new head basketball coach. It is the coach of the Maryland program, so obviously that means that Porter Moser is not going to Villanova. I also did find out from someone that Porter met with the team last week to inform them that he was staying at Oklahoma for another season. So we have lost a couple of guys to the portal. Luke Northweather was the main name that stuck out to me. I know he wasn't always as aggressive on the court as perhaps he needed to be, but I liked the kid. I thought he was a good player. I think he was a great kid, a great person. Hate to lose him from our program, but we have some good kids coming in. We've still got great talent staying around. Obviously, Dayton Forsyth, you know, I'm a little partial to him, but he'll still be around. So I think it'll be a good season next season to just kind of see how things go. Obviously, Jeremiah Fears is still up in the balance, as I discussed with my friend Amanda. Not sure what's going to happen there. It could go several different ways, so time will tell. I'm anxious to see how that goes. Women's basketball had a very eventful week. So the last time I recorded, we were awaiting the Iowa matchup last Monday at Lloyd Noble, and boy, Sooner Nation, did y'all show out. I myself did not get to attend in person, but I did watch on TV. And that place was pretty packed, y'all, for a Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock for a ticket to the Sweet 16. Sooner Nation showed up. There were over 9,000 people there. It was loud. It was an incredible game. Coach Jenny's team really got a great win for them. And I know that meant a lot, not only to the team and not only to Coach Jenny, you know, to beat her alma mater and make it to the Sweet 16. That was bittersweet, I'm sure, to some degree. However, our program really needed that win. And we made it to the Sweet 16, the Spokane Regional, where we played on Saturday against UConn to make it to the Elite Eight. Unfortunately, we did not win that game. Paige Becker's was just too much for our girls to handle. I have to say, you know, going in at halftime, if you watch that game, like we were really doing a great job. We were making shots, and there just were way too many turnovers in the grand scheme of things. But at halftime, we were within a couple of points. The game was definitely within reach. And after half, Paige Becker's just went off. And we just, again, had too many turnovers that were too costly to us. And I really hate that for our girls. They had an excellent season. Skylar Van, gosh, girl, gonna miss you so much. Thank you for everything you did for our program. Incredible athlete. I'm thankful her little sister Zaya is still around. We have a lot of great players that will still be around next season. Again, I know I mentioned those earlier in my conversation with Amanda, but Peyton Verhulst is one of my favorites, and we all know it. I would love to have her on the pod soon, so I'm going to work on that. But our program is headed in the right direction, you guys. Making it to the Sweet 16 is something that we haven't done in a minute. I know Coach Jenny didn't get that, quote, signature win that we truly needed to make the next step in our program. However, I really do truly feel like we're on the cusp of it. And also, in case you aren't aware, we did get the #1 high school recruit last Tuesday, Elia Chavez. She will be coming to Norman in the fall. Gatorade National Player of the Year. Incredible athlete. I have seen some video of her. She can ball out. I think she'll be a great addition going into next season with Peyton, Reagan Beers, Beatrice Colton, and the rest of the crew. Coach Jenny's going to do a lot with her. We are headed in the right direction. It's nowhere but up for that program. I am super excited for them. We have 4 starters returning next season. And honestly, like I said, I can't say it enough, but Coach Jenny's incredible, and we're headed in the right direction. We have no reason to hang our heads. Paige Becker is the #1 draft in the WNBA for a reason. And they're incredible. Best of luck to UConn going forward in the women's bracket. Just a few quick rundown on some of our other sports that are in waiting right now for their postseason. Our women's gymnastic, they have been practicing at home this past week. Next up for them is the Seattle Regional next weekend. And our men's gymnastics have the MPSF Championship in Colorado this coming weekend also. And those two teams will see how their qualifiers go to make it to the next step for the national championship. So after next weekend, we'll have a better hold on where they stand with that. Our baseball team is currently in a rubber match in Alabama, and they have been playing pretty good this weekend. If you're watching the video, I'm on my phone because I am checking the score as we speak. Okay, it's currently the bottom of the 8th. Bama's up 8-6. That was the score when I started recording. I knew it was a 2-run game, courtesy of Taki for scoring that big run for them that they needed to get back within reach of the game. So hopefully they're able to win rubber game and come out of Tuscaloosa with a series win. Soccer. They are in the middle of their spring exhibition season, and they are playing today. They played Baylor at the Frisco Stadium, and I actually had some friends that went to that. So I'm excited to see how that went. Get out and catch a game. I know they have a couple in Norman this spring as well, our soccer girls. So do our volleyball girls. They have their spring schedule out right now. Their next home match is next week on April 3rd. So get out and catch them if you can. Our rowing team is also underway with their spring schedule. They just won the duel against Ohio State and Michigan this past weekend. Our golf guys are headed down to Carrollton on Monday the 31st through April the 1st. So by the time this airs, there will be results for that. But they have the Merido Golf Club Classic in Carrollton. And the women have the Liz Murphy Collegiate Classic. They are headed to Athens, Georgia next week on April 8th and 9th. Our women's tennis beat both Florida and Auburn this past weekend. And our men beat Bama and Ole Miss. So our tennis teams are doing very well on the court. Again, they play at home very frequently. Check their schedule on Soonersports.com. If you go see them in Norman, it is free. So get out and support them. Watching any Sooner athletic event, y'all, is super exciting. I don't care if you even don't know anything about any of these sports. Just go out and support those athletes. Be loud, be proud, wear your jersey, wear your shirt, and just cheer for those kids. Honestly, nothing brings me more joy than to spend time at an OU athletic event. So if you're a huge OU fan, these teams like that, golf, track and field, and tennis, get out and support them, and we can go see them for free. And so take advantage of that. Our track and field teams, they really finished strong at the NCAA indoors. They are getting started in the outdoor season this week, and they've already had several strong finishes and accolades there. But I wanted to read this. I saw on Twitter just as a wrap up on their indoor season. The OU women's track and field team placed 4th at the NCAA Indoor Track and Field Championships, marking the best finish in program history. Agar Dwal also became OU's first triple jump champion. Additionally, head coach James Thomas and associate head coach Gerald Langley earned Division I Midwest Regional Awards for their leadership during the indoor season, and Coach Thomas was named Women's Coach of the Year and Langley as Women's Assistant Coach of the Year. So hats off to those guys. I have actually been talking to Coach Thomas. He's going to be on the show with me this summer. So I'm very excited to visit with him and some of the other coaches later in the summer. I do have a great slate lined up after the diamond sports are over. I'm going to try to focus on some of these sports that don't get a lot of recognition, like soccer, volleyball, track and field, things like that. So I'm excited for you guys to stay tuned this summer for that. I did not forget softball. I just saved it for last because maybe I'm still in denial. I'm not sure, but I can't let it go because I know you guys, we lost the series at home to Tennessee this weekend. I was there Friday night, and that one was a tough loss to me. I think because I really felt like that we were going to find what we needed to get the job done that night. Y'all, Landry has been pitching straight nails. And honestly, I'm not going to let the weekend go by either without mentioning Kirsten Deal. She pitched on the Saturday game, which we won. And, we're not going to lose 2 games in a row. It's not going to happen. I know we're going to have a good bounce back, but losing a Friday-Sunday game from Tennessee at home is tough. First SEC series loss at home. It's not fun, y'all. I mean, we all know it. We're used to the softball team giving us a reason to turn on the TV most days. So again, I don't want to let the weekend go by without mentioning Kirsten Deal because that girl was on another level on Saturday. She was pitching lights out. And I know there's been a lot of people, even myself included at times, that have had my doubts with Kirsten Deal. I mean, I know she's had some stellar games in the past. This season, she's kind of struggled a little, but I've had my faith in her. And then there's been times when I'm like, okay, I want to see her producing on the field. And y'all, she really did it on Saturday. And she needed that. Our team needed that. We needed that win. Kept us from getting swept. But she needed that personally. And we as fans needed that reminder that she can do it. Kirsten Deal is an excellent pitcher. She wouldn't be in Norman if she wasn't. And she struggled. And, honestly, like Ella Parker's been struggling at the plate. And Patty came out the other day and said, listen, y'all can give it up. Like, I'm not getting Ella out of the lineup just because she's in a bit of a slump. And because she said she's one of the best hitters that she's ever seen. And that coming from Patty Gasso, well, who are any of us to question the GOAT? So I'm just saying that honestly, I should have listened to the post-game presser with her, and I didn't. But just from what she said after Friday and Saturday's games, she believes in our team. And each one of these girls are exceptionally talented. She believes in them, has faith in them. They wouldn't be in Norman. They would not be on the roster for University of Oklahoma softball if they weren't a good player. Overall, I would have to say that our team is in somewhat of, I don't want to call it a slump. We were just a little off. We're making those costly mistakes that you can't do in the SEC. Those mistakes made against Big 12 teams may not have cost us a game, wouldn't have cost us a series. But now they do, because we're playing against Tennessee, South Carolina, Arkansas. We were lucky to go into Fayetteville and sweep them a couple of weeks ago. We've got a tough slate ahead of us this conference season. Do I think that we'll be okay? I do. I do think that we'll be okay. I think that we will pull out of it. I think the talent will come. I think that they will respond and rebuild and do all the things that they need to do that Patty knows that they can do. But I want to point out today in the final, it was hard losing that series, but Sam Landry was lights out today. She pitched nearly 2 full games, Friday and the Sunday game, and Cassidy Pickering had an excellent hit today, an excellent at bat. That was in a clutch moment that she needed and that the team needed. And if you haven't seen that hit, you should go to social media and check it out because it was incredible. But honestly, Tennessee had a 5-run 4th inning and we never responded. We were up 3-0 going into the 4th. They scored 5 runs and we didn't respond. And we couldn't find what we needed to get our bats going. But Carlin Pickens, y'all, is a hell of a pitcher. That girl is incredible. I mean, just earlier this week, she threw the fastest softball pitch on record. And I believe it was 78 miles an hour, which is equivalent, they said, to 110 mile an hour baseball pitch from an elevated mound. So, I mean, she's a hell of a pitcher. We were prepared to take the pitches from Carlin Pickens, but she was prepared for our batters. And our big hitters going 0-3 at the plate did not help. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I actually threw this on Twitter earlier today, but Sophia Nugent, who is the catcher at Tennessee, she was at Oklahoma for 2 seasons, and then she transferred when Kinsey Hansen took her 5th year and stayed. I don't blame her for that. I totally get it. She didn't want to waste another year of her eligibility and miss playing. She's been a very key contributor to the Tennessee lineup since she transferred there. But y'all, it feels like she has some animosity with us, and I don't really understand or what's going on, but it was really funny, like being at the home opener for the South Carolina game a couple of weeks ago. Quincy Lilio and that team. And Quincy, when South Carolina played in Norman, she was very well received by the crowd and got a standing ovation when they introduced her. And just the whole weekend, it felt very welcoming for her. And it was a totally different feel this weekend with Sophia Nugent and Tennessee in town. She didn't get that warm reception that others have gotten, and she certainly didn't reciprocate any warm welcome. So I don't know if there's something going on. Maybe I forgot or missed, or I don't know, but I definitely feel like she has a strong dislike for Oklahoma, and you could just see it on her face all weekend. And it was just an interesting observation to me. And so if anyone has any thoughts on that, I would be more than glad to talk to you about it, because I'm still highly intrigued by the whole thing. But there was a ball that was hit that was declared a fair ball, and I would nearly bet my life on the fact that it was a foul ball. It was hit down the right field, first baseline. They ended up calling it fair. Patty wasted a challenge on it. I don't want to say wasted. Used a challenge on it. They still came back and said, nope, it were good. That was almost like a turning point a little bit in the game. I'm still questioning it, but again, what can you do? But a series win just was not in the cards for us this weekend against Tennessee at home, and I hate that. But we didn't give up. I know we didn't respond after they had that big 4th inning, and we had plenty of time to do so, but this team does not give up. Every time we get kicked in the teeth, we come back up. And, last season, Kinsey Hansen made a comment in the World Series when we got defeated, and then we ended up going to the losers bracket of the tournament. And she just said, OU plays best when we've been knocked down. And she's not wrong. They do. So I have no doubt that they will respond. They do have a midweek game on Tuesday in Arlington. So by the time this airs, we will have the results of that. And then next week, they have a couple of non-conference games at home. So there's tickets available for those. If anybody wants to get out and go check out a softball game, that would be a great opportunity to do so. We have University of St. Thomas and UCF coming to town. Supposed to be Friday and Saturday. However, we will see what the weather holds for us. But we have one of the youngest teams in the SEC. I am not worried about Patty. I'm not worried about the team. I'm not worried about any of it because Patty knows what she's doing. She doesn't rebuild, she reloads. And people are going to lose games. They're gonna. I know it's not fun, and we're not used to it as Oklahoma softball fans, but we'll be okay. I'm not in the slightest bit worried about it. We still have lots to play for. There's a lot of season ahead of us. There's plenty to do, plenty of room to grow and learn. So not in the slightest bit worried about that. All right, to end this week's episode with the Sooner Fun Fact of the Week. And it is on Coach Jenny Baranchuk. In her first year as Oklahoma head coach of women's basketball, Coach Jenny led one of the greatest turnarounds in the country. That was in 2021-2022. Her Sooners went 25-9 and reached the second round of the tournament. It was a 13-win improvement over the previous season. And look at what they did this season, making it to the Sweet 16. And I have no doubt that next season they will be back in the tournament, hosting a regional, Sweet 16, Elite 8, maybe even the Final Four. We shall see. So thank you guys, everyone, for listening today and every week. I am so thankful for all of the overwhelming support that I have gotten by people following me and sharing and listening. And if you do listen to the podcast, please download and subscribe and share it with a friend. And make sure you follow me. I am at Sooner Girl Pod everywhere on social media. You can also find my link tree. It is the link in all of my bios on all social media, and that will take you everywhere you need to go to find merch. We have tank tops, hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, hats, and stickers. And make sure that you subscribe for free on Substack to get all episodes and big announcements from Sooner Girl Sports Pod delivered right to your inbox for free. You will never miss a thing. And you can also join the huddle of the locker room in Substack as well for only $5 a month. We meet monthly online. You get a discount on your merch purchase. We will have some in-person meetups soon. We have a private chat on Substack and a private group on Instagram, among other things. So I hope that, ladies, that you will join us in the locker room. And if you don't want to pay $5 a month, you can still join us on Substack for free and never miss an update from Sooner Girl Sports Pod. So thank you guys for listening today. And I want to give a shout out really quick. There were a few people I met at the softball game this past weekend. I don't want to let this episode go by without mentioning them. OU Mini. I met Bella Smith's mom, Sam. I met OU Senior of OKC. Him and his wife were at the softball games this Friday night. So a big shout out. Hello to my new friends. Thank you to those who recognized me and gave me a shout out on social media, gave me a like and follow. And it was so cool to get out in the crowd this past weekend. And I met a lot of new people. If you don't follow me on social media, you definitely need to be doing that. I posted some photos of that, but I also got to meet up with DJ Mathis Sanchez, who's a former OU pitcher. She is an on-air analyst. She was at the games this weekend. I have been speaking with her and will be having her on the show soon, so you won't want to miss that. There's lots of sneak peeks that come up on social media, so be sure you're checking those out. Thank you all again so much for all of your overwhelming support. I wouldn't be here without you. I am so thankful to each one of you who have supported me in any way possible. I appreciate you. So thanks for listening. Boomer Sooner, always. Let's bounce back in our diamond sports this week and get the job done. And I will talk to you guys next Wednesday where we talk sports.